Daria Malin, our entrepreneur extraordinaire with a multitude of marketing expertise at her disposal and experience. So without further ado, I'll just introduce Daria Malin. She's the founder and principal of Boost Strategic Coaching, and Daria's going to educate us, I'm sure entertain us as well with respect to business development in challenging times. So I'll turn it over to you, Daria.
Oh, now the pressure's on to be entertaining. Awesome. Thanks for the warning there, Keith. I'd like to spend about half an hour with you today. I'd like to cover 3 key steps that you as a professional or business owner can be taking right now to keep your business up and running so that you can weather the storm during this difficult time. So the 3 things we're going to cover are reviewing and updating your business model, refocusing on some of the fundamentals that should be in place in every business, and increasing your activity level. Then we'll make some time for questions at the end. But first, I want to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about me and why I'm here to talk to you about this today. So again, my company, Boost Strategic Coaching, involves I support business owners and professionals in finding clarity when it comes to their sales and marketing efforts. So I do that through one-on-one coaching, group training, and online programs. But I wasn't always a business owner. I started out in my career out of university selling media advertising campaigns to retailers. So as a recent grad with a BCom in marketing, I had 0 sales experience or training for it. I started in sales right when I turned 22 years old, knowing less than my clients did about sales or about advertising, and mostly being half their age. I remember going in to call on clients and feeling like for sure they knew way more about my business than I did for the first little while. So during my career, I had to restart a number of times. I started with basically no clients. I was handed a phone book because that was the thing back then, and told to go and build a client list. And after that, during my career in advertising, I had 3 maternity leaves while I was in media sales. So for any of you who have left a sales role and come back from something like a maternity leave, you know that there's a lot of rebuilding to do when you've been gone for a year, because clients kind of fall off and you have to build things up again. So I remember one day sitting in my cubicle about 6 months after being back from maternity leave, and it was mid-morning. It was fairly quiet in the office because most of my colleagues were out at meetings with their happy clients. I had just gotten off of 2 hours of cold calling, and I remember staring at my spreadsheet of all the calls I'd made over that 6 months, meetings I'd had with prospects, follow-ups I'd done, and thinking, geez, like I've been back for 6 months. I know what I'm doing in this job. I've been doing it for years. Why haven't I sold almost anything? And I remember thinking, like I'm good at my job. I have happy clients. Why is it always such an uphill battle? Every time I come back, why is it such an uphill battle? Where will my clients come from? I'd already become an expert in advertising by working with small businesses on their campaigns and promotions for all those years. But that moment in my cubicle, it made me realize it wasn't enough to just have an outstanding service to offer. What I realized is that I really needed to become outstanding in selling. So it prompted me to start working on my sales skills, testing things out, learning more from other people, mentors, coaches, my managers, and practicing. So over those years, I've now narrowed my system down into 4 fundamental steps that I follow every week, every month, no matter what is happening in my life or in the market. When I started following those steps, my numbers got stronger and stronger. I used them to maximize opportunity in my sales career, and I used what I learned in both sales and advertising to build Boost Strategic Coaching, as well as a successful niche apparel company on the side. That's another story for another day. But I'm telling you this because I want you to know I bring a few things to the table, a deep understanding of what it takes to make advertising work, and my signature sales process, those 4 steps. How to take a service business from 0 to success with the right sales strategy. So now we're facing the most challenging market we'll likely ever face in our businesses and careers. This is essentially another restart in many ways. Just like when I was sitting in my cubicle, many of you are sitting at home thinking, like, where are my clients going to come from? The ability to go out and meet new people, go on sales calls, networking the way you'd been counting on has been taken away from you. So And, people are suffering and business is not as usual. So where will the clients come from? Fear can get a hold of us, but I know that with a plan, we have a greater chance of success. I want to acknowledge that some of you literally have had to shut your businesses and can't serve your customers right now, and it wasn't your choice. So we do truly hope that you will be able to reopen and bounce back as soon as possible, and we'll happily come visit you at your stores and shops as soon as we can. But many of you are at home with services that are still needed and deliverable, but unsure how to go about business, or even if it's appropriate in the sensitive time in this situation to do so. We'll talk about that in a minute. For those of you who can't operate right now, we will be talking about some things you can be acting on even if you are closed right now. So my why is always because I believe that many people have great things to offer the world that will be of huge benefit to their clients, but that sometimes they just need a little bit more help or focus in connecting with those clients. And that's especially true right now. So again, the 3 steps we're going to cover today, or 3 areas we're going to cover today, are first, reviewing and updating your business model. Second, getting back to the basics and the fundamentals. And third, increasing your activity level. So first of all, the question I mentioned that I've been asked a number of times over the last couple of weeks is it okay to be doing business right now? Professionals aren't sure how to navigate a very sensitive business environment and wondering if it's appropriate to reach out to prospects and follow up on pending deals. So my answer to that is yes, it is appropriate. Those of us not in forced business shutdown need to keep generating revenue. Without revenue, there is no mission. Okay, without revenue, there is no mission. Your markets and champions need to know you're still there for them, offering support and services that they need, and that you'll be there after this because you're being proactive and keeping your business running. So, first of all, I want to encourage you to look at your business model. Are there things that you can no longer offer in the way that you had been because of the situation that need to possibly be replaced with new ways of offering your services? Are there ideas you've had on the back burner, possibly building something online that you haven't executed on because you didn't have the time? A lot of us in business struggle with finding time to update your model, tweak our model because we're too busy doing what we do, keeping the doors open, keeping in touch with our customers. So if we can see any good in this situation is that we have more time and the opportunity to innovate. So using my company as an example, I've always done my training with clients directly by phone or in person, but I had developed an online program basically to support people I couldn't meet with or didn't have the time to serve. But the program kind of got put on the back burner because of busyness. Based on feedback, I was planning to relaunch the course with a live group coaching and student community component. I'd been working towards that because for the fall, I guess, because I didn't think I had the time to finish earlier. But now that I've been home, have a bit of time, and given that people have been asking for it, we've decided to launch the program in the next few weeks. So for those of you who are interested, you can find more details on that on my website. Anyway, we'll continue. Second thing that I want to consider, or you to consider, is don't wait. So some people are waiting for this to blow over and have gone into hibernation mode. This isn't going to blow over quickly, I hate to say it, but we could be looking at 4 to 6 months before things come back online to business as usual. So the sooner that we all accept the new reality and start acting on it, the better off our businesses will be in the end. So if it's a new idea or a new way of delivering your service, spend some time asking around to see if there'd be a demand for what you're thinking of doing. Look at what your clients need and see what has to be tweaked with your current offering to meet those needs. For example, you may decide to offer split up payments or payment terms when you haven't in the past. Look at ways that you can be working with your clients to still make it doable to do business together. And you could be looking at ways to add extra value to your offering. But again, don't wait. Once you've charted the course, move forward with it. So now that we're done talking about our business model, I want to move on and talk about getting back to those business fundamentals. So my 4 steps. These are the things I was teaching 6 months ago and still are just as relevant today. In fact, they're even more important. The 4 steps are focusing on niche markets, developing messaging for each of those niche markets that will be compelling to them, establishing watering holes, basically where to find those niche markets, and building champions. So niche markets. step one of the process is selecting 3 niche markets. Niches are simply, you've heard the term before, but they're simply customer groups that are different from each other. They're big enough that there will be enough business there for you, but small enough that you can become known as the go-to provider within that group because they talk amongst themselves or there's ways to reach them as a whole, as a group, but big enough that they'll always replenish themselves. So right now, it's important to revisit your niche markets. Have they changed? Are some of them completely shut down? Are new ones emerging who might need you more than ever? Which ones will still exist when this crisis is over? So spend some time, make a list of all the different types of markets that you could be serving if you've never done this exercise before, and look at the top 3 that stand out to you as ones that you know really could be a good fit for you right now. Ones that you've always been working with, or ones that might be emerging based on what's going on. And choose 3. We choose 3 because picking one, that's just not enough. It's if you put all of your eggs in one basket and that group just for some reason doesn't work out, then you spent a lot of time and energy with nothing to show for it. But any more than 3, it's hard to do a good job focusing on them. So 3 niche markets seems to be the magic number. Second, after you've selected niche markets, review your messaging. So I mentioned we figure out what that niche needs to hear from us, what part of our products or services matters to them, and that's what we communicate with them. But right now, it's more important than ever to really use our emotional intelligence in our messaging. It's not a time to be tone deaf. So think of be mindful of what you're going to say and how it's going to be heard. We've all seen businesses advertised to us over the last few weeks who are completely insensitive to the situation, and it really seemed out of place, right? So your communication needs to take into account that people are suffering. Think about what role your business plays for that niche right now, and figure out a way to communicate that with them in a sensitive and supportive way. So once we know who our niche markets are and what they need to hear from us, then we figure out, well, where do we go find them? That's step 3 in the process. In-person options are obviously gone right now. And so that's where people often think, well, there's nothing I can really do. But I would say the opposite is completely true. There's lots of online watering holes popping up right now. Meetup groups, there's membership groups who are having, closed events or summits, those kinds of things. If you have content to share, things to be able to offer those niche markets, there are, like I said, summits, there's people doing podcasts, there's people doing webinars, there's plenty of ways to get in front of people to build your platform and visibility. We need to build visibility, then credibility, then profitability in any given market that we want to serve. You can't jump right to profitability. So if you're trying to think of how to build your presence within a niche, both think about how you can meet individuals within that niche, but also think, how can you build that credibility? What part of your expertise can you possibly share with them in a new way? And then, of course, there's also social media. There's definitely niche markets that you'll find in different social media platforms that you can be communicating with. And the biggest thing, the Zoom call, is today's coffee meeting. So think of those business cards you've collected over the last few months, or those people that you met at events that you've been meaning to reach out to. The cards are still sitting on your desk. Now's the time to follow up on them. We've been, I appreciate when people reach out to me. Right now, all of us are looking for connection. We don't get to see people as often. And so having those kinds of connections are very appreciated. Reach out and ask people, if they would like to have a virtual coffee. Literally pick a time for a Zoom call and have coffee ready on either side of the computer and have a conversation just like you would in person. The fourth, and probably one of the most important things to consider right now, is your champions. So once you've figured out who your niche markets are, what your messaging is for those niche markets, where to find them, where those watering holes are, the fourth is building champions. So champions are just the next step up from referral sources. Champions are different because they are not just people that send you referrals. They are people that you work together with to help each other out. So in order to get good champions, you need to be a good champion. Champions are clear on what you offer to each of your niche markets and which markets you're looking to serve. And you are clear on the answers to those questions for your champions as well. So again, to have champions, you need to be a champion. I mentioned that this is going to come into play now more than ever, because right now, the people you're going to be doing the most business with are people that already know and like you and trust you. So it's going to be your existing circle. So be working with your champions to see how you can support each other right now, maybe to make some introductions or to just keep in touch and sort of help each other through this time. So those are the 4 fundamentals that mattered 6 months ago, and they're relevant now, and they'll be relevant in 6 months. Whether you're just starting out your business or you've been in business for years, whether it's just you in the company or you have a whole team of people in your company, or whether you're a professional service provider or in a sales role, or if you're selling a product or if you're a business owner. These are all things that you should be and can be figuring out for your own profession or business right now. So now that we've talked about those 4 fundamentals, let's move on to talking about your activity level. So a few people early on said to me in coaching calls, I think I'm just going to have to hibernate. You know, I've got about a bunch of paperwork to catch up on. No sales are going to happen until at least the fall. So what's the point in trying? And my response was, I couldn't disagree with that statement more. We have to work 3 to 4 times harder right now than we would have 6 months ago to get the same results. So more is more right now. So assuming you have the right strategies in place, you have to use them more than you would have before, both in consistency and volume. So that means reaching out to 3 or 4 times more people than you would have in the past. So as mentioned, start with people you know. Look at it like rings of the tree. Your inner circle first, past clients second, champions and people who you've already known in the past third, and then people outside of those 3 rings after that. Again, be having conversations with them, book virtual coffees. Look for ways you can align with each other, ask people what they need right now, talk about what their dreams are for the future once they can be back in business as usual. That's you being the positive reminder that there will be an end to this someday. And look to be of service first. So make sure that your champions and people have what they need. Now's the time to build that you're going to be building intimacy more than ever. In sales and business development, we normally are looking for commonalities as we build business relationships. But for the first time ever, literally everybody has this big one thing in common. So it is a comfort to be able to share the experience with others. One of my champions is hosting virtual happy hours on Fridays, and I've heard of others. You know, I'm feeling like I'm having more face-to-face time than I usually do with my own champions, you know, virtual FaceTime, but still FaceTime. And I'm sure you're all doing the same. All of us have figured out the Zooms and the house parties and the Facebook messengers, and our parents and grandparents have figured them out too. So it's not a bad time to be in front of people in a business setting too. So that's what I wanted to say about building up that activity level. So again, we have to work 3 to 4 times harder, reach out to more people, look to your inner circle first to stay in touch, and look to be of service first. So to recap, I want to remind you to review and update your business model. What can't work right now or needs to go? What can you be doing with technology to pivot? Sorry, everybody uses the word pivot, but that's the thing right now, to be able to serve the market where they need you right now. And what can you work on that you didn't have time to do before? Get back to the fundamentals. If you don't have your niche markets and your messaging, your watering holes and your champions dialed in, now's the time to get those in place. Increase your activity level. It's not the time to hibernate. And I have to acknowledge that it is very hard to do this right now. We are all distracted. Our kids are home. My spouse is working 15 feet away from me right now. We're homeschooling. We're trying to not look at social media with COVID updates all the time. Plus, of course, we're worried about friends and family right now. So it's important that we set goals for ourselves each week, or each day and each week. Basically, how many people we're going to reach out to, how many calls we're going to make, how many meetings we're going to have. and build in some sort of accountability for ourselves, ideally with someone else helping keep you on task, because it's way too easy to just get thrown off the course any given day, especially if you're working in your pajamas. So the things I want to leave you with, pretending I'm your coach for a minute, is if you're sitting home right now wondering what you should be doing, I'll tell you. So I would tell you to make a list of your inner circle, your best clients and champions, and start reaching out to them to have those conversations we talked about, and make a point and a plan to continue to be in touch with them throughout. Revisit your niche markets and figure out how you're going to communicate with them effectively, whether it be directly through champions, virtual events, or through other channels like social media. And decide what your offering is for 2020, assuming that this is the new norm for a while. I truly believe that having a laser focus on niche markets and giving them all you've got could be the greatest business development tool you could implement in your business. So make a commitment to connect with them. Don't wait. Keep up those connections, and you'll be positioning yourself to weather the storm, even come out ahead as the crisis passes. So I promised we'd keep it under half an hour. And Keith, I think that we have a little bit of time for questions. If you want to open it back up.
We certainly do, Daria. Thank you very much for that presentation. And I do know that you also have a PowerPoint. So my first question to you will be from an administrator logistical standpoint. Will your PowerPoint be available to others if they want to log on and check out the recording afterwards?
Yeah, I'll put my I guess my website is where you can get a hold of me. You can certainly just send me an email and I can send you the PowerPoint. Certainly, if you're asking questions today, that's great. But if you have questions that come up later, I am home. So I have a little bit more time for thorough email responses than I normally would. So you're certainly welcome just to email some questions to me over the coming days.
Absolutely. That was a great presentation. I have a couple of questions of my own that came up as a result. So as some of our contacts, clients, members, what have you, are pivoting, do we look to that new activity that they are doing as a means of trying to either complement that or piggyback or do some own, pivoting of our own or business development around that, or is that seen as too opportunistic?
You know what? I think that it all comes down to communication. If we're in touch with each other and finding out what truly people need right now, and we're looking to help them solve that problem and fill that need, I don't think it's opportunistic. That's the biggest fear is it opportunistic? And my answer is always, you have always existed to serve your market and to solve their problems. Some of them need you more than ever right now. Mm-hmm. Right? So if their needs change and you can solve their new needs, why wouldn't you make them aware of that? One of the biggest questions I always get is, how do we sell without sounding salesy in general, not even in this time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I always say, if you're clear on who you serve and what you serve them with, your job in sales is simply to educate them on that, simply to let them know that this is why you exist. And it's up to them to decide if there's a fit. But if you are sitting back and not even telling them that you could solve their problem for them, then you're not doing them any service. And so, yes, pivoting is not a bad thing. If you see that needs change, then your service offering can certainly change. Yeah,
that's good advice. I see we have a question on our chat. Can you see that, Daria, or would you like me to read it out?
How come I can't? Oh, there we go. Yeah, got it. Susan, what's a belief about ourselves in business we need to have to thrive during this period? Great question. So I think we have to believe in the value that we are offering and the why we're doing what we're doing, and that we have succeeded in the past, we can succeed again. A lot of people, their business has dropped a lot. And there's nothing they can do about it. This is the market. They've had to close their doors. But if you can think to the fact that you've built this once before or you've built this twice before, you have the skills and the expertise to do it, you can do it again. Like the times that I came back from my maternity leaves, I had to remind myself over and over again, I know how to do this. I know how to build this business back up to what it was. And I'm going to set higher goals than last time. So even if business has fallen off right now, or it's gone down based on the situation. You can't take it personally, it's out of your control, but know that you have the skills and the expertise and the drive to do it again. Yeah, have a restart. Does that answer your question? Thanks, Susan.
My other question that I had for you, Daria, with your advice, to keep to your inner circle and expand and concentric circles type thing. What about businesses that, so I'm just thinking in terms of our membership, the manufacturers and so on that have export markets and so on, with the focus being on shopping local and these sorts of things. How can these companies, I guess, reinvent or regenerate or get back to where they were beforehand with sort of their business development or their business model a little bit on the outside looking in, if you will, if you understand my question?
Yeah, so you're asking if they can't be doing business out of country right now, how do you?
Yep.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, we don't have all the answers to that, but I always would start with continuing to be in touch with all of your people that are the most important to your business now and in the future. So some of it might be that the people next to them can't get supplies from out of market that usually should. Maybe they can fill that need, right? So if they're having trouble selling out of market, there's also people that are having trouble buying and bringing in. But you can't know that unless you're talking to all the people that are in the same kind of industry as you. So I would hope to see that a lot of the supply and demand gets shifted locally short term. And then I would strongly encourage anybody who normally sells overseas but can't right now to stay on top of those relationships, because the markets will open eventually, and you want to be the first people they call when they're ready to do business again. So don't let those relationships drop, even though right now you can't actually send. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally. Yeah. And we do have another question on the Q&A portion there. I'm not sure if you can see it there, Daria. Let me know if you can. If not.
Yes, I'm able to adjust my business to offer online webinars with some clients. I've never hosted a webinar and would like to learn how. Can you recommend a good program that I can learn and practice with before I start offering it to my clients? You know what? Anytime I'm looking to solve a problem online, I go to YouTube, honestly. It seems to be the best place where people who have tried to solve these kinds of problems and learn these things on their own tend to make how-to videos. So that would be one. I think Zoom has become the place for webinars if you're looking for a web platform. But you can also, if you want to email me, my person that that sets all of my tech stuff up for me, I'm happy to introduce you to her. Her name's Brandy. She's out of Regina. So if you want somebody to just figure that out for you, I can certainly make a connection for you. But otherwise, I would look to YouTube for just some how-to videos. Does that answer your question? Sorry, it's not I don't have the answers to that. Yeah. So another question that's common that comes up a lot is, how do I know what to say to my niche markets? And an answer I would suggest is, if you're looking to build relationships with a new niche market, or if you already have relationship with that niche, or you've started to work with it but you haven't gotten far, ask them. A lot of times we jump into a niche market and we jump into marketing and we make a bunch of assumptions, and we don't stop to find out what makes them tick, what questions they're answering, what problems they perceive they have that you can solve, versus us making assumptions for what problems we solve for people, if that makes sense. So you can spend some of your virtual coffee times with people, asking them questions. Make a list of what you wish you knew about that niche market. Find out from them what they're going through right now, what problems they have right now. Basically, go on a hunt for information, become sort of a super sleuth, and share with them, I want to serve this market better, or I want to do more work with this market, or I already do work with this market, but I'm always trying to learn more, and spend time finding out from them what it is they need. And then you'll find that it's much easier to word your messaging to them, to figure out what to say to them, to get them to understand how you can help them. Yeah.
Another question that came to mind, Daria, as you've been answering, I think more the webinar one than this last portion, but when oftentimes people give referrals to other business associates and so on. And so when you're establishing these Zoom meetings, is it appropriate to have 3 or 4 even people involved in that initial conversation so that it is more like a meeting, if you will, than just a one-on-one? Like, would that be helpful, or would that be more of a hindrance, do you think?
I think it would be fine. I always like the warm introductions over the cold calls, right? That's where your champions come into play. Mm-hmm. And so normally I'd ask of a champion just to make an e-introduction to me from like if there's somebody in a niche market that I really want to meet, I would say to them, I know you know this person well. Would you mind making an introduction by email for me? And when they do that, then that's a much easier way to connect with somebody new, because they already have somebody who they know, like, and trust saying, this person is legit, you should spend time with them. So I think it would be taking it one step further and even being a stronger way to connect if that champion, that middleman, is in the meeting too, because they can speak for both parties as you're having the conversation. So I think any chance we can get right now to be building new relationships through our champions is not a bad thing. That's why I mentioned one of my friends has, the Friday happy hours.
Yep.
Make sure you pour your drink before you get onto the Zoom call. And I always have a summer patio series and a winter eggnog and ideas, where we generally meet at a restaurant, and each person that is in my invite list brings a person, so then we all meet new people. I will obviously be looking to launch that online, possibly even earlier than patio season this year, because I think people are looking for those ways to connect in a different way right now. So
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you think, this might be more of a hunch question, but do you think that the business community, how the cycles always were in terms of summertime, a slowdown, do you think that this summer will be different if in fact we're able to be out and about and conducting business in a more normal fashion?
Gosh, if we could be out and about, everybody would be at every event. I think that the people, like the business organizations who normally wouldn't do summer networking events, should do them this summer. Mm-hmm. I think that's best case scenario. I don't know that we'll be able to be out in groups by then. Right. But yeah, I think people will be. And people, my impression, you guys have probably heard the same thing, is people, even if we could travel overseas, there's much more of a feeling of we need to support our own country and travel kind of locally. So I think that people will be in all the meetings and all the patio events and all the networking events this summer. I think people just miss that connection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that was my hunch too, but I'm pleased to hear that you have that same opinion. If and when the time comes, that things will be. Yeah. And
I just think all of us have this more level, like we're just always around. And I think that that's going to carry on into the summer. I just don't think there's going to be people going in all directions like there normally would be. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I don't see any more questions coming up, Daria, but if I turn it back to you, and unless a question comes in, I encourage anybody to bring forward any questions they may have. But if none were to come in the next minute or two, I'll maybe turn it over to you to give a brief closing from your presentation, and then I'll sign off with a short thank you after that. But if you want to sort of give a brief summation on what you've provided us today, or however you want to close.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm all about the homework. I think all of us need some kind of plan to stay accountable to what we're doing. So even if you just set yourself a list of 3 goals per day and write them down in the morning, and then try to get those done, even if it's baby steps, all the baby steps in the world will get us further than trying to do these big grand things and just getting too distracted and then upset with ourselves. So setting up daily routines, those morning routines everybody's talking about. Like, I still get my kids out of bed early, not early, but I don't let them sleep in. That's just me. Everybody's different, but I feel like they thrive on having a bit of routine and having some specific tasks to do in the day. It just feels like there's a little more normalcy. And then I follow the same thing. Like, I've always worked from home, so there's been no problem for me to continue on my plan. I just have more people popping into my office saying hello multiple times a day, but setting the morning routines, writing down those 3 things you're going to get done that day, or here's how many calls I'm going to make this week to my champions to make sure we're connected. then there's a feeling of, I'm doing things that are going to move the needle on my business this week. And it makes you feel like you're not just kind of letting it go. Yeah. So go back to that business model, look and see what needs to be tweaked, those fundamentals, and increasing the activity level and setting goals for that. Those would be what I'd like to leave you with.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Daria. And I see that Susan has submitted more a comment than a question, but it says that yes, short-term, daily, and weekly goals keep her going. So that's great advice and great feedback for you and us all to hear. So once again, Daria, I just want to extend a sincere thank you to you for sharing your expertise with us. I know you've done it from time to time in the past as well in person, and we've had tremendous turnouts for those as well as we have today with today's webinar. So I want to extend our appreciation to you for that, and just remind everybody else that our webinars are ongoing, and we have several upcoming. I don't know that we have this Wednesday's quite nailed down yet, but check our website, check social media, and you will see when we host them. They are virtually every second day, every second business day, that is, and they're always at 11 a.m. For the time being anyway, so that seems to be working. And I just want to thank all of you for coming and sharing your time with us today, and especially to you once again, Daria. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the NSBA for doing these. I think we all appreciate the information and that feeling of connecting every couple of days with you guys as well, and hearing from the members. So thanks for having me.
That's great. You're welcome. Okay, take care, everybody, and until next time.